What's going on, you guys? This is your boy RBG, aka the Random Black Gamer, bringing you another video on Marvel Spider-Man 2. Apologies for this late video. You know, I have been trying my best to enjoy this game as much as possible without feeling like I'm sacrificing anything, but I feel it's time that I talk about the game and give you some of my theories on what's going to take place in Marvel Spider-Man 3 and possibly Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales 2. I have a nagging suspicion that that game is being cooked up by Insomniac as we speak. Since there was a particular group of fans who felt like Miles wasn't given a lot to do in this game, I feel like Insomniac is going to take it upon themselves to actually give him a lot to do in his own solo outing. And you already know they're going to make that game twice as long as the first installment because everybody felt like that was nothing more than a glorified demo. But in my honest opinion, I felt like the Miles Morales game was a litmus test to showcase what they can do once they got to Marvel Spider-Man 2 by implementing all those different Venom features, which ultimately were carried over to Marvel Spider-Man 2 for the symbiote. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do something similar up in the next installment. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and say it right now, there are gonna be a ton of spoilers in this video, so if you haven't completed Marvel Spider-Man before watching this, I recommend that you do that before you check out this video, because this right here is gonna just go over everything that I feel like is gonna happen in Marvel Spider-Man 3. But if you're one of those viewers who doesn't really care about getting spoiled and you just want to know what's gonna happen or just get my thoughts on it, then by all means stick around. You're a rebel without a pause and you're gonna do what you want at the end of the day. But anyways, for those of you who have played Marvel Spider-Man, you might have noticed that this game took a very dark turn, and I honestly feel like it's gonna get darker, man. It's gonna continue to go down that dark and gruesome slope because Insomniac Games, they were pushing that T-rating to the fullest, man, and we already know it's gonna be no holds barred when it comes to Marvel's Wolverine, which the creative director Bryan Intihar has already confirmed that Marvel's Wolverine and Marvel Spider-Man 2 take place in the same universe. And we had already seen those clues peppered throughout all the different trailers we got for Marvel Spider-Man 2, where we saw 1048 open on a door, which is a reference to Earth 1048, which is the universe that serves as the setting for various Marvel video games developed by Insomniac Games and Sony. And as you notice, it consists of all the Marvel Spider-Man games and now the confirmed Marvel's Wolverine game. And since Marvel Spider-Man has that connection with one of the most violent characters in the Marvel universe, then that can allow them to push the envelope with any new entry in the franchise, because Spider-Man can really take it there when it comes to that violence. And while I knew we were going to get a certain level of that in Marvel Spider-Man 2, I wasn't expecting to see what we got. Like when we saw Venom bite off Kraven the Hunter's head and leave his dismembered body just laying there with the necklace. That scene in particular just alluded to all the different possibilities and boundaries that Insomniac Games is going to push Marvel's Wolverine and Marvel Spider-Man down the line, because I feel like Marvel Spider-Man can be M for mature, especially when it comes to this villain that we'll be seeing in the future, and that is Carnage. This was a character that I wasn't expecting the game to allude to so soon, but you know, he is highly associated with Venom, and anytime you see the black symbiote around, you can bet your last web shooter that somehow it's gonna birth the red symbiote, which is Carnage. Cletus Cassidy, who will serve as the host of Carnage, formed a cult called the Flame, and Yuri, who's now going by Wraith, has been tracking him down for years. As the leader of the murderous cult, Cassidy is completely devoid of morals and empathy and remorse, and he cares nothing of the atrocious actions of his cult or the people he hurts. One of his followers actually worked for Oscorp and told him about the symbiote, which allegedly would make a person far stronger, so he devises a plan to hijack the train that's carrying it. He goes on and on about this cataclysmic event referred to as the Crimson Hour, where him and his embers will be spared while the unworthy will be purged. And initially Spider-Man and Wraith thought he was talking about the hospital because he plants bombs all around it, but it was all according to Cletus's plan to get the symbiote, which he does obtain after the train derails from the explosion. And I think it's very important to remind you guys that Cletus Cassidy came very close to killing Spider-Man without the symbiote. So that shows that he's very capable, and when he gets that suit, it's going to be on. And I'm going to quickly throw in the theory that Shriek will also be in Marvel Spider-Man 3, because that's a character that's most commonly associated with Carnage, like they're a package deal, so don't be surprised if you see her in there. As he holds the symbiote-filled canister in his hand, he says, "And when the Crimson Hour rolls over this earth, it shall bring truth, Judgment and Carnage. And you can see the symbiote begin to turn red because it's been cracked after the crash, and his blood is starting to seep in with the symbiote, already starting this premature merger with it. This game seems to follow the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, where the symbiote serves the purpose of healing its host and any other kind of illness that they have. And Cletus has already sustained a lot of damage, like he has burn marks on his body and he was cut by Wraith. So as you can imagine, the Carnage symbiote is ready and willing to heal him in exchange for that rage that he's going to feed off of. And once the two merge, you can expect to see maximum carnage. Like, you really thought you saw something with Venom biting off Kraven's head like a cherry-filled waffle, but you ain't seen nothing when it comes to Carnage, because he's made with all intents and purposes with violence in mind. And that's why I believe Insomniac Games is going to have to decide where they want to draw the line, right? Are they going to risk sacrificing the character's true nature by making him semi-violent, or are they going to go all out? Because over the years we've seen this character be neutered when it comes to other forms of media outside of the comic books, right? Like in the live action Venom movie, he didn't really cut anything, as he just pushed it because they wanted to preserve that PG-13 rating to get more kids in the theaters. So I'm really hoping that Insomniac does the right thing and makes this character as violent as possible, because he's a serial killer at the end of the day. He needs to push that envelope, and I expect him to do just that with this new symbiote power. Speaking of symbiote powers, I think it's safe to assume that we will be seeing other symbiote characters outside of Carnage. Like, I know we got rid of Venom, but I have a nagging suspicion that he will be returning in the form of Anti-Venom, which was already set up during the later events of Marvel Spider-Man 2. Even though Peter separated himself from the black symbiote, it was discovered that remnants of the Venom cells were still remaining in his body, and he was on the verge of being reinfected into a rage form of the black suit. But thankfully, Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, used his white energy to purge those cells, creating the Anti-Venom suit. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I did initially assume that the white Anti-Venom suit would make it into the game in some form or fashion, because it got introduced in a similar way in the comic books, where Eddie Brock suffered from brain cancer after being bonded to the black symbiote for so long. But after a simple touch on the shoulder by Martin Lee, his cancer was cured and a new white symbiote was formed from the remnants of the Venom symbiote, with Eddie labeling himself Anti-Venom. And I feel like history is bound to repeat itself, because even though Eddie Brock didn't become Venom up in Marvel Spider-Man 2 like he has in past iterations, I have a nagging suspicion that he could potentially become Anti-Venom up in the next installment, because he does exist up in this universe. He's been mentioned throughout various forms of Easter eggs. I'm not quite sure what he's up to, but I think he's working with the Daily Bugle. And I think him or any other viable host has a chance of becoming Anti-Venom up in the next installment, because Peter Parker is free to use the Anti-Venom suit at the end of Marvel Spider-Man 2, but I don't think he's gonna hold on it for too long. I feel like that's gonna become another threat that he'll face. And before you guys just say that the Anti-Venom suit isn't going to fight Peter because Anti-Venom was a good guy in the comic books, it's important to point out that we have seen other iterations that were antagonists, such as the one featured in the Spider-Man Edge of Time video game. So yeah, let's not rule out those possibilities, guys. Now, this next theory could possibly end up in the next Spider-Man game, or potentially be a DLC for Marvel Spider-Man 2, because as you know, DLC has been a thing since the first entry, where we had the City That Never Sleeps DLC. It was awesome, I really enjoyed myself, and I really liked the fact that it's set up for other story elements that we would see later on. And Insomniac Games continues with that tradition of plastering Easter eggs throughout Marvel Spider-Man 2. You get a Doctor Strange Easter egg. We see Fist Towers being reconstructed into the Fantastic Four Baxter building. There's even a mention of Rand Corporation, which is owned by Danny Rand, aka Iron Fist. And if you know anything about this character, you know he's most commonly associated with the Defenders, which includes the Daredevil. If you looked hard enough in Marvel Spider-Man 1, you could discover that Nelson and Murdock had a plaque plastered on a building located in Hell's Kitchen, which showed that these guys have been active in the lawyer business for quite some time. While it remained there for 2 games, by the time we got to Spider-Man 2, the plaque was there but the text was gone, indicating that the duo may have relocated somewhere else. When asked about it during an interview by IGN, the creative director Bryan Intihar said that they should stay tuned, leading many to believe that we could be seeing Matt Murdock, aka the Daredevil, in a future DLC or in a later installment. given the fact that Daredevil and Spider-Man share a similar rogues gallery with characters such as the Kingpin, it's not that much of a fever dream to suggest that the characters will be working alongside each other. While it seemed like all the clues stopped there, fans were able to find something else that corroborated their theory that Daredevil would be appearing. And that's when they discovered a secret room tucked away at the back of an innocuous bookshop in the Upper West Side region that may belong to members of the Hand, which is an organization that the Daredevil has been fighting for years. And there's a logo on the outside of the building, but it doesn't mirror the one that we know from the comic books, but there is a red flag hanging from the building that suggests that it is in fact the Hand, because red is their signature color. And you can't really enter the building, but you can look through the window to see guns, swords, and shields, and symbols and books, which is an amalgamation of all the things that they like to delve into. Like, they can actually do hands-on ninjutsu, and they can specialize in different weapons. They even delve into the mystic arts. So yeah, they're a jack of all trades. So don't be surprised if you see Daredevil and the Hand pop up, and we could possibly see Wilson Fisk, who's currently serving time at the Raft, because he's worked with the Hand before, and even though he's been locked up, he still has different things going on, like the two twin towers over in Midtown. But moving on, we got to talk about a villain that we're definitely going to see in the near future, and that is Chameleon. Not only is it revealed that Kraven the Hunter had a lot of issues going on with his health, but he also had a lot of issues going on internally with his family who wanted to seek out his fortune. Everybody wanted a piece of him, and apparently he had a brother that also wanted to get back at him, because he had been seeking to kill his brother for the longest time. In a side mission, the Spider-Men track down drones that Kraven the Hunter is using to find a specific individual, but along the way they discovered that data on the individual varies heavily, ranging from ordinary civilians to people who have been dead for years to people that don't even exist. And upon analyzing all the data, the Spider-Man discovered Kraven was seeking out his half-brother the Chameleon, which is a longtime adversary of the original Spider-Man who had escaped prison after being caught years ago. To keep from being caught by his competitive and deranged brother, he rigged his apartment with death traps in anticipation for Kraven falling into them, but ended up attracting the attention of Spider-Man instead. Under an unknown identity, Chameleon watched from a nearby rooftop as Spider-Man left his apartment while sipping a martini and vowing to do what his brother could not, which is kill the Spider-Man. And what I love about this mission, guys, is that they have a brief reference. If you listen in closely, you can hear the Chameleon's piano playing the theme that played at the beginning of Spider-Man Web of Shadows. But anyways, the Chameleon has been around for quite some time, and he was one of the many villains that Peter Parker came to encounter during his career as the masked vigilante Spider-Man. So you can definitely bank on seeing him in Marvel Spider-Man 2 or a possible DLC. But let's keep it moving on to the biggest one of them all. As you guys have heard me say, Miles Morales might be getting a second solo entry, because there's going to be a lot going on with this guy. After him and Peter save New York from Venom, he decides that he's going to take the load off of Peter's shoulder by becoming Spider-Man full time. And I honestly think this is a smart move. I know a lot of people disagree because they want Peter to remain the primary Spider-Man, and I think he will remain the main Spider-Man. I just feel like Miles is going to temporarily take the load off his shoulders just so Peter can get his footing in the door and try to keep the household up, because as you guys remember, he lost his job at the beginning of Marvel Spider-Man 2 because Sandman was out there going crazy. I don't understand for the life of me why they didn't think of this sooner, because they could have had a whole schedule worked out where they clock in for a certain day just to give the other Spider-Man time to rest up and deal with their normal lives. And I feel like by the time we get back to Marvel Spider-Man 3, Peter will have gained his second breath and he will be Spider-Man once again. And the best way to fill in that time gap between Marvel Spider-Man 2 and 3 is to give Miles Morales a second solo outing where we actually see him doing just that, not only in his hometown of Harlem, but in other parts of the map that are now available, such as Peter's neck of the woods. It definitely wouldn't be the first time we saw the new Spider-Man cover for the original, because in Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales 1, we saw him do that when Peter went out with Mary Jane to Symkaria. And Miles already has a lot going on that I don't think they will be able to cover in Marvel Spider-Man 3, such as his mother adjusting to him being Spider-Man, all the while trying to keep up her duties as a city councilwoman. Later on in the story, it's been revealed that she's been dating someone named Albert, and she offers a date where Miles and Albert could meet up for the first time, but Miles keeps pushing it off due to his duties as Spider-Man. But at the tail end of the game, we actually see them meet up. And not only does Albert come to visit Rio and Miles, but he brings his daughter along and introduces her as Cindy. And this is where we officially get our introduction to Cindy Moon, aka Silk, a character that's still relatively new to Marvel. Like, she got introduced 9 years ago in 2014. I know know a lot of people were wondering when we were going to get somebody like Spider-Gwen, because we've been seeing her a lot with stuff like the Spider-Verse, but Insomniac Games always takes it a step further by doing things their way, and Cindy Moon is going to be that perfect substitute for Spider-Gwen because she's always been associated with the Spider-Verse as well. In the comics, it was revealed that Cindy was also in attendance at the public exhibition where Peter got his spider powers. The spider ends up biting her on the ankle shortly after biting Peter, and as you'd expect, she gets her own spider-like abilities, except there are certain things that are only exclusive to her, similar to how it is with Miles. She has an extremely effective version of the spider sense, which is called the silk sense. It has superior range and allows her to identify her attacker before they even make the move. It's so strong that sometimes it can be a bit finicky, causing it to go out of whack. Anyways, her other powers include superhuman tracking, where she can find and sense any Spider-Man across the multiverse due to being bit by the same spider as Peter Parker. Another thing that sets her apart from the other Spider-Man and adds to her namesake is the fact that she can actually produce her own organic webbing as opposed to having web shooter cartridges. It's very similar to Raimi Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, except this one is a lot more potent and can also be used to wove clothes. And she can release it from all of her fingertips as opposed to just releasing it from her wrist like the other Spider-Man do. After she gains her power, she gets locked away by this guy named Ezekiel in fear that she'll be kidnapped by the Inheritors, which is a group of power-hungry individuals who love consuming the energy of all the people who possess spider powers. And we've kind of seen the Inheritors interact with Earth 1048 Spider-Man in the Spider-Geddon comics, but since those comics aren't necessarily canonical to the games and they aren't really acknowledged, we'll most likely see Insomniac Games introduce them in a different way, because they're another aspect of the Spider-Verse, and Insomniac seems to be embracing that this time around, because we get that awesome scene that connects directly to the Into the Spider-Verse films after you collect all the different spider drones. Anyways, before Cindy Moon even becomes Silk, she's a very shy and timid character, and we kind of see that when we see her wave at Miles very timidly. I can see them developing this big brother little sister relationship since both of their parents are dating, and I can also see her acquiring her abilities similar to Miles, where she somehow gains a spider bite from the Oscorp lab, which leads me to this final character who will most definitely be appearing in Marvel Spider-Man 3, the Green Goblin. Insomniac Games has been building up this villain over the course of 3 Spider-Man titles, and I feel like he will be revealed in the 4th installment, which is Marvel Spider-Man 3. As I'm pretty sure all of you are aware, Norman Osborn is the one who donned the Green Goblin mask, and I'm pretty sure he'll be doing the same for this game. With each entry in the Marvel Spider-Man series, we've seen him steal the spotlight for the post-credit scenes, which made him feel like a main event player who could potentially go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man in the near future. And we got a small tease of that potential in the form of this equipment Norman had been making with his company Oscorp. They featured a transparent helmet that showed weaknesses in walls and opponents and was capable of synchronizing with an unseen glider. There were also these small purple grenades. After Harry Osborn was put into a coma by way of being separated from the symbiote, Norman called one of his staff members and told them to get the G serum ready, which basically means that the Green Goblin is going to be making his grand entrance. And I for one cannot wait for this, guys, because I'm very curious to see what they do with Green Goblin, because like I say, Insomniac Games has a way of injecting certain elements from different iterations of these characters and perfectly splicing those elements to make their own unique version. Like, are they going to borrow from the Ultimate Spider-Man comics where the Goblin is literally that, a actual goblin, or are they going to go the traditional route and make it to where it's just this guy in this suit on a glider who's just mad? I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video because I know it was a long one to get through, but I had a blast making it. But let me know your thoughts on this. Do you feel like these things will come to fruition? And do you feel like Spider-Man Miles Morales 2 needs to be a thing so that Miles gets more to do? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I ask you to like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up. You can give me a thumbs down if you want. But if you really enjoyed this video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared with all your friends and followers on all the different social media outlets. Sharing is caring. But once again, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.